Derek, would you agree that most every owner of a production company or a studio at one time or another has said, I want to make a movie?
100%, yes.
And you are among that crowd.
I am, yes.
This is The Fabulist. I'm Joel Pilger, and I'm diving deep into the intersection of creativity and commerce. With my generous collaborators at Coop Studios, I'm traveling the world to gather all the insights that studio leaders need but are way too busy to grasp. I'm talking to the motion makers, the fable finders, the storytellers. I'm here to celebrate you for not merely participating in the industry, but for reinventing it. Because the future isn't just coming at us, it's being created. So let's get after it.
I want to do this experiment where I want to ask you some questions that are like, hey, who is Derek today? What's happened today? And then say what happened before that laid the groundwork for that, and what happened before that. So I'm going to do a little bit of a experiment in terms of how we unpack and reveal your story.
Okay.
Now, what I'm going to say to everyone's benefit here, like why we're even talking to Derek, is would you agree that most every owner of a production company or a studio at one time or another has said, I want to make a movie?
100%, yes. Yes.
Yes. And you are among that crowd.
I am, yes. And what's interesting, I've wanted to make movies before I wanted to make commercials. Probably also a similar conversation with a lot of production company owners too.
Yes.
And they're trying to find a path to make a living doing what they love to do. So that's how we got here.
Yeah. I'm thinking of my story that one of my first creative endeavors was making a feature film in 1979 that grossed $13 at the box office. But hey, I was only 12 years old. So that was actually kind of a big hit. But that's where a lot of us start as creatives. But I want to go all the way to I hate to say the word, the end, but let's go to the present.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was going to go to the present and I was going to say, Derek, you and I have been in touch over these past few years, and you have recently been texting me with updates, and I've been going, wow. So what just happened? And then I'll ask you what happened before that and before that.
Yeah, so we just, in the past couple of months, signed a distribution deal with Angel Studios for our film to launch in January in 2,000 to 2,500 theaters around the country, and then internationally after that.
And what is the name of this film so we can reference it?
Yeah, the film is called Brave the Dark. And I describe it as Good Will Hunting meets Mr. Holland's Opus meets Dead Poet Society.
All right, Brave the Dark.
That's how I describe it.
Okay. So you see how I'm really hooking people's curiosity because they're like, wait, a film is one thing, but did you just say it's releasing in theaters?
Yeah.
So what happened before that laid the groundwork? Because I'm thinking back to Sundance before last when you were there in what mode? What were you up to for those year or two previous?
When do we talk about the crying? Is that no? I think
yeah,
honestly,
you can mention that, and then of course we will unpack shortly.
No, when we met in Sundance earlier this year, and then last year in 2023, I was in sales mode. I had a finished film that we believed was strong. It was a beautiful drama with an incredible director, incredible cast. Jared Harris was our lead actor. Nicholas Hamilton, they played in Mad Men and Chernobyl, and then Nick played in It and Captain Fantastic. And our cinematographer shot Home Alone, was his first film, and went on to film so many great movies. Our director, Damian Harris, was incredible independent film director, been in the business for a long time. There's so many people to name that were part of the film. And we just had wrapped in 2023, just finished the film and just started screening it for test audiences to see. And it was just really impactful. And we believe we had a great film. I had an agent that was with Range Media Partners, an awesome agent to sell the film. And I was super optimistic. We were gearing up for an April 2023 to screen it for buyers and in LA. And in sales mode.
In sales mode. And I'm going to say, I feel like you were in sales mode for a year or even two?
Over 2 years, I was in sales mode. Now, honestly, candidly, I was in sales mode for over 3 years because when we started fundraising, I started talking to sales agents, international sales agents, and wanted to start getting some of those things lined up before we went into production. And that didn't happen.
Okay, so this is where if I was to say, okay, but what happened before that? I'm thinking what happened before that is something like you finished the film.
Yes, in the summer of 2022, we finished Brave the Dark and worked that whole year on editorial, sound and color finishing, composition, music. The composers were based out of LA. We actually recorded the music with a live orchestra on the Warner Brothers stage in the Eastwood lot. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
And now, if I said, and what happened before that, meaning when did you actually start, I don't know, let's call it production in earnest on the film? How long ago was that?
That was 2021, specifically September and October 2021. In the middle of COVID restrictions and COVID testing, and costs had just gone up tremendously for everything, not just for propping, for everything. It was more expensive for everything. So 2021, we were shooting.
And what was the major milestone before that? Like, when was it securing funding and getting the green light? We're going to actually make this thing.
Yeah. So June 2021 was when we greenlit the film.
Got it.
And we were dealing with some availability challenges with our lead actor, Jared Harris. He was getting ready to go into season 2 of Foundation. And we were met with, okay, do we have enough funding to say, yes, we're going to go? Or are we going to wait? And he said, hey, listen, I have a window to shoot this in September, October 2021. The director had the same window. Everything was lining, but we had to make the decision in June. And we needed over $3 million in funding at the time, ended up needing more, and we had $1 million committed. And I was on a good momentum. I felt really good about it, but we greenlit it. We're ready to go. I didn't have a bank account open yet. We had the LLC. I had verbal commitments, but I had no money in the bank. Not even a credit card yet in the production's name, but had a lot of great investment opportunities and a lot of great investment commitments from people that were going to eventually write those checks, but didn't have the checks yet.
And how long before the green light did you, how far back does the genesis of, man, it would be amazing to make a movie, or I love this script, and hey, we should start raising money for this. Was that several years prior?
For me personally, it was actually just 3 months prior. It was April of 2021 is when I got involved. But this film had a journey back all the way to 2014. But I had gotten involved in 2021, specifically April, and started fundraising, started raising money for the film. The film at that point had Damian Harris, the director, Jared Harris as a lead, Nicholas Hamilton as a lead. We had a great core. We had our agent. We had a lot of things solidified. We had the script. We had the story. The inception of the story was about this real life person named Nate Dean, and he was a friend of mine. And I've been hearing about this journey, but really April of 2021 was when I hit the ground running. Wow. And it's been a sprint ever since.
So what was the origin in 2014? Was that when the story was written or captured?
Yeah. So Nate, he's had some severe trauma in his life, and his teacher, Mr. Dean, became his father. And basically, Mr. Dean was like, hey, you need to write this story down. This is an incredible story. It can be really impactful to people and encouraging to other people. So in 2014, he worked with a writing partner and started writing a script. They didn't start with a book. They didn't start with a memoir, whatever. They started with a movie script, a screenplay. And Mr. Dean was alive at the time and started helping them, make that happen. And it just took a few years until, and that was in 2014.
Okay, so now I'm going to actually pause and reset for a moment, because the part of the story that we haven't even yet unpacked is, who is Derek Dienner and what is your day job, if you'll pardon the expression,
exactly.
right? Because you actually have a full-time concern, right? Called Make Films, right?
Yes.
You're wearing the hat for those of you that are seeing the video. But so do us a favor, introduce yourself and tell us about Make.
Yeah, that's a great question. Derek Dienner, I'm the founder of Make Films, a production company based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Central PA. I always say, hey, listen, we're in the middle of nowhere, but we're also in the middle of everywhere. And it's a great place to have a company very entrepreneurial here, back hundreds of years with the Amish that my grandparents were Amish. So I have Amish heritage, a lineage, very entrepreneurial, live off the land, figure out ways to solve problems every day. It's pretty amazing culture actually with entrepreneurship. And that's what Lancaster County and Central PA is rooted on, that entrepreneurship. So it's a great place to have a business and have a family. I'm married, I have 2 kids. And it's a really great place to have a business. So we produce commercials, advertisements for brands, for agencies, get to do a lot of great things here in Central PA with the goal of making films and making documentaries, narrative features. We've done a lot of shorts. We've done a lot of different types of original content. With this idea of making meaningful films, making a difference, impact, true stories, using films and technology and everything to bring people together. We're a lot more connected, related, even in our quote unquote unprecedented times. We have a lot more in common from both sides of the political aisle, from all the different sides of religion. Humanity is a beautiful thing, and that's what I live my life to connect.
So I was just thinking, if I was listening to this podcast, I would be wanting to type in a URL so that I could look at this company right while we're talking. So just do me a favor, what's the URL for Make?
Yeah, makefilms.cc.
Okay, thank you. So now you can see why I extracted your story in reverse is I buried the lead, right? Because the lead is Derek runs a production company. That's really, let's call it, has been your main ongoing concern for how many years?
Yeah, it's been a form of Make Films for over 18 years. When I started my business, when I was 21 with my wife, she's the controller, the partner, but Make Films is 10 years old in its current form.
Got it. So this is, I think, such an interesting point when we get to say, okay, so to every founder, right, leader who runs a production company out there that has this similar aspiration of, I want to go make my movie. Now there's the story called, oh, you're running a business while you're also running another business called making a movie. But you give it to me in your words. How would you describe it?
Yeah, the goal of Make Films is to have 2 clearly self-running divisions: commercial advertising, social, those types of things on the one side, and then the film and TV on the other side. The commercial business, the advertising business is going well. We have a team here that really helps and takes the lead on all those things. I'm still very active in that side of the business, but have a lot of help in terms of employees, in terms of our team here. The film side is like, hey, this is exciting. There's some growth opportunities here, but I'm a little bit by myself with a couple of people administratively here within the company. And then everybody else is outside, freelance, that I hired to make this movie and hired to make other films or partnered with or collaborated with. So the film side is, hey, we're starting the flywheel, right? I haven't been investing in that flywheel for 7-8 years and seeing for longer than that, but really 7 or 8 years with intentionality of eventually I want 70 to 80% of our revenue to be driven by films and 20 to 30% of the revenue driven by commercial. And it's been lonely on that film side because when I'm commercial, we have a team, we have all these things going on. On the film side, I'm working with people outside the company a lot and a lot of learning. I've also learned that there's huge differences between the film and TV side and the commercial side and advertising side. Way more than I thought. I was going to bridge the gap quicker, but there's a lot more learning that happened to me on the film side.
So I'm going to pretend like I'm living my former life, okay, when I was running Impossible, because we did have, I'll call it a division, a sister company that produced programming for TV.
Okay.
And that was cool. But even that was still just work for hire. Like we're being paid to go shoot and cut an episode for Biography Channel. It was not making a movie in the sense of what you've done. But we also had this, I think a lot of us have this notion, and I want to hear you burst my bubble here, okay? I think there's a common belief called I'm going to run a commercial production company that makes money, and then I will develop my film on the side. So I make a living over here, and I'll develop this over here, and one will fund the other. And someday, when I don't know, make it big, or my film is finally released, or whatever, then I just get to switch and go do that for the rest of my life. Is that a myth? Is that yeah, it's like that, but what you just left out is X, Y, and Z?
I think that's a possibility. And I think that there's aspirations for that. What I would say is that it's not as simple as that. I do think that having a profitable business as a core business is an amazing thing to do. And to keep that going in a way that brings life to employees, brings life to your clients, revenue, sales, opportunities, relationships, not letting that fizzle out is important. I think what happens though for me as an entrepreneur, because honestly, I'm an entrepreneur first who loves filmmaking. That's the way that I think about myself. I believe that my journey the last almost 4 years of Brave the Dark has taken my focus away from some of the core things that happen to make commercial advertising successful. And over the last year, I've had to go back in and say, hey, what do we got going on over here? Let's candidly talk about what happened as I was going after a new division, a new opportunity. What happened to some of the core things that we were doing that allowed me to do this? And reevaluate and restructure is a strong word, restructure and rethink of how we're doing this. On top of that, I would say that both industries, commercial and film and TV, are going through a reckoning, going through a changing where entertainment is being redefined. Advertising is being refined, those sales funnels being redefined. So you have people like Disney are sitting down and saying, how do we get people to watch films again? And then you have people like big agencies saying, how do we get people to spend money on big advertising or big commercial spots again? Or where do these go? Where does this go? When basically social media is cannibalizing both markets. In some ways, I'm like, I wish one of my industries that I'm focusing on would be a growth industry that's saying, hey, here's a clear path of growth. Here's how it works. Here's how you get on this path. And I can talk to 3 people, 4 people. I'm a big mentor guy. I like to have mentors, like to mentees, all that. But how are we getting there? Let's go there together. But I feel like if Disney's sitting down and trying to figure it out, and you have big agencies that are trying to figure it out, where does that leave me?
Yeah, sad that both sides, I would maybe go so far as to just candidly say that I think both sides that you just described of entertainment and advertising / marketing are for sure fragmenting and shifting, but maybe in some places they're actually shrinking. And for us so over the past couple decades, for us to see that growth curve that both of those have been on for so long, and then all of a sudden, oh, they're not growing anymore. That's been a big wake-up call for many of us. So I have this curiosity in you because I heard you talking about the flywheel and make films with a intentionality. And I also heard you say, I'm an entrepreneur first who loves filmmaking.
Yeah.
And what I'm curious about is, if you weren't an entrepreneur first, if you instead were a director or a creative first, how might your journey of making this movie have been more challenging?
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, why?
It just would. If I wouldn't have a core foundation of being an entrepreneur, a problem solver, someone who's not just believing in the films that I make, then this wouldn't have happened. You have to be able to think about things in a way that's not so glued to the creative and to the film that you're making. You have to take a step back and say, okay, I got rejected by this. What does that mean about my approach? It's not, what did I create that's wrong? Or what did I make that's wrong? Or there's a lot of great films, a lot of great projects, a lot of great work out there that doesn't see the light of day or doesn't get picked up by a streamer or by a distributor. And it's not an indictment on the creator, on the filmmaker, on the person. It's an indictment on the industry. And so you have to say, okay, I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with these challenges. And when I was trying to sell this film for 2 years, why isn't it selling? We won all these festival awards. We did so well. People were touched and changed, and it deals with this homelessness and component and aging out of foster care component, and the Wendy's, the Dave Thomas Foundation, and CAS, all these nonprofits are like, engage with us. We want to help you get this out there. But like the traditional path was not working. And the traditional get an agent, do this thing is not working. So then what do? You can walk away. I could have walked away. I could have put it on Amazon streaming, or I could put it on, got a really crappy streaming deal, finished that chapter of Brave the Dark and moved on. But I believed that this movie has a bigger stage. I believe that Make Films and everybody around us in this Central PA community has a bigger stage for filmmaking. Even though the industry is crazy and it's going through all these things, as an entrepreneur, you can forge a path through all that. And I think that focus helped me tremendously. And I think I always tell filmmakers that I meet, man, be an entrepreneur, think through it. And I think what I mean by that is like problem solve and build something that is not there. Build, just like you created something new and something that from nothing in a film, do that with the economic side, the business side. What YouTube did 25 years ago and what a lot of creators are doing now in the YouTube space is something that 30 years ago we never thought was possible. And so what's the next thing we never saw that's possible? And so I'm just showing up every day with the films that I'm doing, with the projects that I'm doing, and with the commercials I'm doing. Just keep showing up every day, thinking that one time, one thing will lead to something else, that will make me an overnight success in 20 years.
I love that thought. Yeah, so I know that feeling of that sort of crazy incremental step-by-step progress that other people will see in bursts, right? They will see, oh my God, your movie is in theaters. You're such an overnight success. And you'll be like, yep, it only took me a decade or two.
Yeah, this is a visual that I show of this is a lot of the people that I met over the years in my distribution journey. And I did this little chart to keep track, and I would check off when I talked to them last, and do I need to follow up with them? And then when someone would say, hey, I know this person, I would do a dotted line to them. And I would just try to keep track of everybody that I met to say, hey, who else do you think I should talk to? And how do I get this to the finish line?
Yeah, and for anyone listening, this sheet is a bunch of bubbles that are all connected, right? There's 30, 40, 50 bubbles on this sheet of paper showing all these crazy connections. So something I want to say from my standpoint, I think this is really interesting that other people might hear this and say, oh, because when you talk about, I could have settled and like just released it on Amazon, would you characterize that as a direct-to-video move?
Yeah, basically a direct to like rental for purchase. You can do that fairly easily.
And you could have settled for a bad streaming deal, which I'm guessing is the Netflixes or whoever of the world might have.
Just licensing deals, low figures, yes.
Right. Yeah, sure. Put it on your platform, and if it gets a bunch of plays, I might get some money back. What's interesting is when I think about like when you and I first connected, when we met at Sundance, and you had that really tremendous, what would you call it, a cocktail happy hour?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it was a cocktail party. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And okay, so what's interesting, Derek, is that was what, almost 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were there saying, we did it. We made this film. We're now here at Sundance. We're shopping. Yeah. This is so exciting. Yeah. And dude, from my perspective, I was like, holy shit, he did it. Like in a way, I'm standing there in the room going, wow, this guy has done it. He's arrived. That's awesome. Okay. Now fast forward a year later, you and I are back at Sundance. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? And you're like, I'm still on this journey. I'm still trying to sell this film. And there's that thing in me that says, wait a minute, a year's gone by. and I'm thinking, is this normal? Is this the journey? And in a way, the answer is no, because the industry is constantly shifting and evolving. And as my friend, I'm starting to think, man, is he okay? Is this going to go? Is something wrong? Whatever. So then when you started updating me with It's sold. We're getting distribution. It's going to be in theaters. I'm like, wow, the number of times that you had to say no to the bad streaming deal, the Amazon, whatever, self-distribute, whatever thing. I don't know that people can fully grasp that. That's the reason I give that context is it's not like you just had to say, oh, I'm going to pass on that and then be patient. And then this amazing other deal just showed up. Like you daily had to make that decision over. And I don't know how, I don't know how you did that. I don't know. You just had some deep belief inside that said, no, this is destined for this journey, this path, what have you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I really believe in business coaches. I really believe in mentors. And I've had two great business coaches between Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan that we've talked about before, and Gap International, a woman named Rashna that has been incredible for me. And I set up a stand, what they call a stand for this film. And I have personal stands as well. But a stand is basically saying, this is what I believe to be true. And circumstances aren't necessarily lining up with the stand quite yet, but they will. And eventually it'll happen. And the only thing that's holding me back from having that happen is my belief and my grit and my determined nature to get there. And it is insanely hard when you're in the middle of it, when you don't see really how you're going to get there. When I was making the film, I had belief in a stand for the fundraising. I said, I'm going to have $4 million to make this film. And every morning and every night, I would look myself in the mirror stupidly and just say, you got this. It's going to happen. We got this. $4 million. We make this movie. And it happened somehow. And it's not just like some voodoo thing. It's a real thing. I have a lot of faith as well. And I believe God, and I believe that was a part of it. But I do believe that the determination of what happens in your brain when you say, this is what I'm standing for. I know I'm not an insane person. I know that my reality is not there yet, but I got to get my reality there. And how do I get my reality there? And so my goal every day was to move it forward every day, something little, whether it's sending a follow-up email, whether it's searching for someone else that I didn't think about, learning something new, going to another festival, mostly the majors like the Sundances of the world and the Cannes of the world, like the majors, to see are there buyers there, are there people there, what are they saying about the industry? And when I first had that cocktail hour in Sundance where I'm saying, hey, I'm here to make meaningful films. I'm here to make a difference in filmmaking. I made this film called Brave the Dark. It has impact. We're in the process of selling it. That year in 2023 was when the strikes happened, was when COVID was still rebounding. Inflation was terrible. There was so much craziness. So many layoffs were going on everywhere in the industry. And people were afraid to take chances on films. And I kept thinking it's an indictment on our film. And it's an indictment on me. What did I do wrong? And I just kept reshifting my brain. It's like exercise every day, exercising my brain. No, you're not going to go there. Talk to my wife. She could tell you how much I actually lived there. I was trying not to live there. It's hard. So it's just consistency.
I'm even thinking, just in case anybody missed this, that when you hosted that happy hour event at Sundance, that's a great example of, man, that was not a small, that took a lot of planning, a lot of coordination. You obviously spent a lot of money just to even host that. And by the way, thank you, because it was a tremendous event that I got to participate in.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming.
But yeah, I don't know that there are a lot of filmmakers that think, oh, if I just show up at Sundance, it's enough. But Derek said, no, we're going to have an event. We're going to invite people to it. We're going to invest money in this. I don't know where that money came from. Yeah. I guess it came from your flywheel, right?
Yeah, it came from
come on.
The commercial. Yeah. And I did get one of our investors in Brave the Dark also contributed to that too and helped kick off the event. We split it. But it was also like Stephen Beer, who's my attorney, that it was his idea. He's, listen, you're going to Sundance, have people come to you and tell them what you want to tell them. Control the story, control the narrative. And Sundance, when you go, it's freezing. You're in lines outside everywhere. It's awful. It's honestly, Sundance, no offense, but there's some ways that Sundance is awful. And then in other ways, it's amazing. And it's got both sides. And I was like, I'm going to create an environment that's warm with open bar and some snacks in an afternoon that people can come in and just, let's talk about the impact that films have. Honestly, what I was trying to say too is let's talk about what, when you're, 10-year-old Derek, when I picked up the camera and I'm like, I want to make a movie. I want to make movies. I want to do this. That gives me the chills thinking about that. Let's get back to that, Derek. Let's not talk about the 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears and what happens in life. And I went through like cancer and health issues and entrepreneurial struggles where you're like, am I even a leader? Do I even know how to lead people? What am I doing? Let's get away from that and get to the core and say, who am I? Why did I want to do this? And do I want to keep doing this? And if I want to keep doing this, I'm not stopping. And there's been greater odds that people have overcome, worse industries that people have overcome, bigger challenges that people have overcome. It's all possible. So stop that narrative, believe in what you believe. And basically you and I sitting down here right now are basically a result of the last year of our thinking, of our eating, our habits. And what has been the last year of habits for me that's causing me to be here today? Am I overweight? Am I overweight mentally? Am I dealing with all the challenges that the world's dealing with? Or am I on a path that I believe in? And if I'm not, I need to adjust.
Man, it's been so cool just to let you go right there. Because I was feeling the goosebumps and getting a bit emo myself just hearing you talk about that child that had that crazy creative ambition of, I want to make something. And I was even reminded of this quote. I'm curious if this resonates with you, because as you were talking, I was thinking of this famous quote that Steve Jobs shared when he gave a commencement speech at Stanford.
Yep.
And the quote says, the minute you understand that you can poke at life and that if you push something in, something will pop out on the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing. Embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. Does that resonate?
Amazing. Yes. I'm literally getting the chills again because I think that's the core of what I believe to be true. And every time I go to a big city, it doesn't matter where it is. I'm always like, what's the tallest building? I need to get to the top of it and look over this city every time. My wife's always, okay, we don't have to do this every time, but I do it. And I look over and I'm like, you know what? Every one of these buildings has an impossible story behind it that probably it died on so many times.
Dude,
and it was an idea.
Yes, I was last year standing at the bottom of the Empire State Building looking up and I thought, okay, it's one thing to marvel at the architecture of it all, but I often marvel at the deal. Like when I look at major motion pictures, when I look at a skyscraper, especially when you go back and look at major achievements down through history of like look at a cathedral, okay, or some other big achievement. Yeah. I'm like, what did it take to create the alignment needed to pull this off? Nuts. And that's I think maybe a great, I don't know, just study. Yeah. In like, it's, I'm guessing it's the same thing to pull off a feature film. Like you are creating ridiculous amounts of alignment among a couple hundred people and herding all those cats, getting them all on the same page to where there's this final focused, I'm not even going to say the word final because the journey just continues. It's ongoing alignment of, I got alignment to green light. I got alignment to get the film done. I got alignment to final cut. I have alignment now to market and sell and promote. And then alignment someday called, we're going to distribute. We're going to be on screens.
I know. No, it's an incredible amount. There's some advice that I got along the way that was really helpful. And there was this woman who used to be an HBO executive, and she said, most independent films are made simply by the grit of the producer. It comes down to that sometimes. The grit of belief, I got that belief in there, but the grit of the belief of the producer. Because honestly, there are moments in time where you have to say, this is not worth it. This is not going to result in, like, eventually it's not going to happen. So I'm going to walk away. And that has to happen. That has to be a reality. I don't want people to hear this and say, man, okay, I'm going to create something that nobody wants to buy and it's a terrible idea. And you've tested it and it's not resulting and you keep doing it. There's got to be a reckoning at some point where you say, okay, this is not market ready. This is not applicable, blah, 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 those types of things. But if you really do believe that it has the possibility that it can be something bigger than what its current form is happening, and you're testing it and you're getting results, then you don't stop. That's the only thing separating you from success is stopping. So I think there has to be that back and forth.
Yeah, you reminded me of an observation that I've made in life and in our careers, where I will often tell perhaps one of my clients or an owner or a founder like yourself that what I've observed is generally speaking, we are all going to accomplish all of our goals and our dreams eventually, but it probably won't look like what we thought it was going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of what I heard you saying there was you had to remain, like you have this grit, but grit towards some sort of a goal, but that goal is almost malleable and evolving. But the grit is still there. The grit is still there.
Yeah.
Like it's both at the same time.
It is. And you first have to know where you're going. You have to know where you're going. That can adjust, but you have to have a vision. There's another thing that's interesting here. One of the investors of Brave the Dark was raised Amish heritage too, like I said, in Lancaster. And he has a painting on his wall that is a farmer with an old-fashioned plow, with a horse and buggy plow. And there's a post at the end of the line. And basically the idea is that you have to be looking at that post when you're plowing the field. Otherwise, your line's going to get all crooked. And it's the same idea where you have to have this post of where you're going. Now, I think in entrepreneurship and kind of the journey of life, the post will change and can adjust. And if all of a sudden you get a hurricane or a flood or whatever, and circumstances change, economic winds blow, you have to learn how to adjust and adapt. But you have to still have that post, and then the grit to get you there, the muscle to get you there, the strength to wake up in the morning. There was mornings during this where I just did not want to wake up. And that's why you have a good support system. You have to have people around you, because my wife's just like, get up. I'm getting up. I'm getting up. I'm getting up. But now I'm like, it's happening. So when you deal with blows after blows, I think that's the challenge with film. So one of the core fundamental differences between running a commercial business that has positive cash flow, that grows and has different kind of milestones of growth and team, employees, however you structure it, versus a film is that it's a startup. You're starting everything from the ground up in a film. You are raising money to eventually have nothing in the bank account. But if you did it right, you have a burn rate, you have to figure that out. But at the end, when you're going to sell it in distribution, or when you're going to distribution, you won't have a lot of money left. So it feels backwards. It feels weird. You're like, I just had millions of dollars in this account.
It's gone.
Now I have nothing. And that's okay, because that's the way it's supposed to be for films. But it just feels counterintuitive. It feels you just feel like you're going from fire to fire. You don't feel like you're having like a momentum build in a way. And you're just trying to survive a little bit. So mainly, some of it was because it was my first large narrative feature. I've done feature-length documentaries. I've done narrative shorts, but this is my largest. It was full union, a lot of different challenges I've ever dealt with. So that is a little bit of it, where you're like, man, this feels like, I'm a big like passion guy, about driven by my passions and emotions. And I've learned how to not be so fully invested in every decision that I make, and adjust and learn to be like, okay, I did the best that I could do in that moment. Now I'm going to do a little bit better. But that is a weird fundamental change that happens when you're making a movie versus, now, of course, if you're a studio and you have multiple films, and it's a different situation. But for an independent film, when you're creating an LLC, a separate company for that film, raising money to put into that, and then going out into the world and distributing it, that's what happens. It's just bizarre.
Wow. I'm curious to let's use this perhaps as a final topic that we can wrap on, is for the person listening who has a studio or a production company, and they have heard your story now and they say, yeah, I'm on a similar journey. I've got my commercial side of my business and I want to develop this film/TV side of my business.
Yeah.
Is there some wisdom, some guidance you can give us to how you created a flywheel on the one hand called this commercial thing is going to make money and sustain me and this team while I also am putting time and energy into this, film TV effort?
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing, right? That's called lack of focus. You are now serving two masters.
That's
so
the hard part.
yeah, what's your advice?
I think the advice is to make sure that the commercial side or the core side, the advertising side of it, has focus from people on that team to make sure that it's going where it needs to go. And yes, you might be focused on this shiny object over here, which is a film or a new project, but to make sure that you're not so focused on that, you're not giving direction or vision or ideas, or you're not contributing to the other portion. Thankfully, this didn't happen to me, but you could wake up if you're so focused on the other side and you have nothing. Your core business is nothing anymore. Because, like I said, the challenges that are facing advertising and production and filmmaking on the commercial side is big right now. So you need to make adjustments. You need to be in there. And whether it's you or somebody that's on the team that can do that you can be communicating with about those adjustments, that is huge to have that. And then on the film side, I think I went all in. I went all in on Brave the Dark the last 4 years, which has kept me out of balance a little bit. But I don't know how differently I would do it if I would do it again. I think I would just take care of myself emotionally and mentally a little bit more. But I think understanding, I'm an optimist, so I can sometimes not be a realist. Understanding the odds that I had against me the whole time, maybe it's good. I didn't know that. But I think understanding what I was going through a little bit more would have been good. But on the film side, really trying to think about distribution as early as you can is the key. Because ultimately you can create whatever you want to create, but if nobody sees it, it's not going to be financially viable. It's not going to work. It's not going to build to whatever you need to build next. Where is it going to go? Who are you making it for? Unless you want to make a short film that really tells a story that only you care about, that nobody else really cares about, and you want it to be completely pure of your vision, what you want, or the team wants, that's great, but it might not make money or it might not be successful. It could be, totally could be, but it might not be. So really understand the audience is important, and where's it going to go? And a place like Angel Studios or these distributors that are doing things differently, Angel is really about making films that spread light and positivity or some type of light in the world. There's other distributors that are doing interesting things as well that are trying to create a new path that connects to audiences in a different way. So engaging with them early on in the process will help you. Obviously, all the social media and all the YouTube types of content that you can create too is opportunities as well. So I think I really understand, what are you trying to make? What's the goal? Where do you want it to go? Make a business plan for this film. Make a business plan for your film. And really, just like you're doing on the business side, do that for your film. But be okay to say no, get no's 50 times. Be okay with that too. Right.
Right.
I think that's what's really funny is like all the stuff that people say all the time about entrepreneurs, like, yeah, fail fast. All the Gary V's of the world, they're like, oh, it's okay to fail fast, this and that, make mistakes. But when you're in the thick of it and you're failing a lot, it's hard to keep getting up. It honestly is just hard. It's just hard to keep getting up. And then keeping your confidence in line when you're doing that is important. Just because you went through these challenges and failures or tried things and didn't work, doesn't mean you're not going to make it or you're not on a successful path. It just means that you have to do all these things to get there.
I'm thinking how Dan Sullivan taught you and I both this concept of how to protect your confidence, which I think is such a beautiful thought. What I heard you say about the film and TV side there about distribution was this idea of increase your odds. Doing that work earlier and being thoughtful and considerate about distribution those are all moves that are going to increase your odds. On the commercial side, I'm curious because if I'm reading between the lines of what you said, what we're calling the flywheel.
Mhm.
Like, let's call it what it is,
Yeah,
right?
that's From Good to Great as well. That's From Good to Great. That's the
Okay.
book, yeah.
Yeah.
Jim Collins. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Collins. That flywheel is generating income, which sustains everything. But when you talked about the team, I'm guessing what I heard was you must have systems and routines that keep people accountable, and they know that they're winning. They know that they're succeeding. They know that it's working. And it's a simple enough structure that you can check in weekly, monthly, however it is that you do, as the owner who's ultimately responsible. Am I filling in some of the blanks correctly? Because I do want
Yeah.
people to know pragmatically that you don't just say, I hired this great team and they took it away and the
Oh,
flywheel
no,
is
it's not that
spinning. Like,
easy. It's not. No, we've had to make a lot of adjustments over the years with that. And I think what I've learned, and I'm still learning daily, is how to be really clear from me to them about, and not, I think Dan Sullivan calls us again, like drive-by delegation. That doesn't work very well. I've learned that the hard way over and over. Hey, take care of this thing. And then you give no support, you give no vision or help. But I think the important thing about that commercial side and building that team, again, I'm still adjusting and learning. I don't have this all figured out. But the important thing to understand is that it's not about my idea of what I think this company should be. I have a vision for it. I have a direction for it. But because of, again, the challenges that the industry is facing, it's a lot of back and forth. Like, how are we figuring this out together? And what does success look like for this person in the company, or producer or an editor or cinematographer? Like, what's the success look like for you within the Make Films ecosystem? And how do we get there together? How do we adjust? So being really clear is important as a leader. Clarity is huge. Like, you need to be clear to yourself before you're clear to others, and making sure that they understand really what's expected of them to be successful within the organization. Again, I'm learning how to do that better. And so I've been over here in this film world, and then, oh my gosh, I got to be clearer on this other side. This is not going to work long term. I got to figure this out.
I'm guessing then there's some sort of a cadence to that as well. There's some sort of regular check-ins or meetings or stand-ups or something.
Yeah,
just
for sure.
You have to stay on top of it.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to have those types of regular meetings. You have to have. I'm in a weird place with meetings. I hate meetings, but I love meetings. I'm conflicted constantly by meetings. But you have to have some type of a regular kind of conversation going, and they need to understand. I think if I'm all about autonomy, almost to a fault with people. Like, I trust people if I'm going to hire somebody, I need to trust them. And if I don't trust them anymore, then they shouldn't be working here. That's like kind of the candid truth. And so I think trust is one thing, and then effective kind of accountability and how we build in together something is an important communication objective all the time. And it's not easy. It's not easy when you're in an industry that feels like it's being challenged a lot right now, and having to adjust and change and try new approaches or whatever, and on all facets.
To your point earlier, that fence post is constantly moving. And so you have to have people that can handle the fact that the vision might still be the same, but that fence post, man, it just keeps freaking moving.
I know. No, you're right.
Dude, I am going to say a huge heartfelt congratulations on just the ongoing journey of Brave the Dark, but also this ongoing journey of building these two businesses really that you're in. Are you, yes or no, are you going to make more films, more movies?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to be like waiting with bated breath to hear what else is going on. But answer this question for us. Where can people go and see? When do I get to see Brave the Dark in the theater?
Yeah. So December 1st, tickets will go on sale, and January 24th, opening weekend. So I love for your support, Joel, and tell all your friends. And we're working with like national nonprofits to get the word out in all these local areas. But 2,000, 2,500 theaters every week leading up to the launch there. Angel Studios is talking to the theaters, getting more theaters on board and growing that. So pre-sales have a lot to do with that. So it's exciting. The next 2.5 months are just going to be a sprint to the finish line.
Dude, I mean, what a thrill for me just to hear you utter those words. Tickets go on
I know. It doesn't seem real yet. It's going to seem very real December 1st, but it doesn't seem real yet, hardly.
Wow. Yeah, happy to spread the word and promote and all that leading up to the big day. I can't wait to see it in theaters. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon again. And we'll celebrate in real life. So, dude, keep it up.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, it was really good to chat with you.
Thanks for listening. And thanks to my collaborators at Coop Studios. To learn more about them, visit coopstudios.com. As for you, if you're focused on running a strong and thriving creative company, consider joining Forum, my private network of the world's leading studios. For details, go to joelpilger.com.